Hello everybody, my name is Richard Vigorelli and this is Vigorelli Institute. I have here notes. Yes, and no, you cannot read them because you probably can't read my chicken scratch. Anyway, this is kind of a special video for today. I am actually recording this on July 4 because, well, that's when I had time to do it. I'm a surprisingly busy man, even on my days off. So let's dive in, shall we? So this is about a deep historical dive into the causes of the American Revolutionary War that, kicked the British out of power, starting in what most people believe is 1776. We'll get into that. Also, most people believe that the United States was, in fact, founded in 1776. I can debate that. So, let's get into it, shall we? Alright. So, many of you will probably think that we're going to go back to, the Stamp Act. No. Okay, well, how about maybe the founding of a few colonies? Oh no. We're going back even further than that. In fact, we're going back to the point where the British weren't even in North America at the time. It was just the French. Okay? We're going back to 1603. A little thing called the Unity of the Crown. Okay? See, England had just come out of a civil war. Okay? There were two families vying for power, the Stuarts and the Lancasters. Okay? And they were fighting bitterly because both of them had equal claim to the English crown that had been handed down from Henry VIII through a few of his successors. Okay? It was pretty nasty. The whole war honestly lasted about 100 years, and they're just tossing back and forth. Anyway, James Stuart, who, by the way, is of Scottish descent, he is James I of Scotland and James IV of England, or vice versa. I get them mixed up. I'm sorry. He wins and becomes king of both Scotland and England. And he's looking at it like, I don't want to rule two countries. I want to rule one country. Now, he is more English than he is Scottish. So he unifies the crowns. London has a much better power base, so he gets rid of the capital in Edinburgh and moves all administration down to London. And there we are. Okay? Well, his family rules what is now Great Britain, or the United Kingdom, up until 1707, when, through a marriage to another family from a place called Hanover, that's now a city in Germany. Back then, it was a city-state within the Holy Roman Empire. It goes to another family, and a woman named Anne. Here's the thing. The Hanoverians, as they came to be called, were Protestant. The Stuarts predominantly were Catholic. As a result of this, well, we kind of moved into a couple of little issues here. And unfortunately, those issues had reached back all the way to the time of Henry VIII, when Protestantism really gained its hold in England, and it just kind of spread out. Catholics, even today, view all forms of Protestantism as heresies, technically speaking, and most Protestants view Catholics as obtuse. So there we are. But let's get into it deeper, shall we? So, long about 1745, a young man comes to power. His name is Prince Charles Stuart. He is Catholic. He was born in Rome. For the exiled Stuarts, as an arm of them, there was a loyal group in Scotland, but he was born to the disloyal group. Now he comes up and he's looking at the genealogy and he says, you know what? I've got a claim. I've got a real good claim. First of all, I'm British. The Hanoverians aren't even English. They're German. They have no rightful claim to the throne of Great Britain. They have no rightful claim to the crowns of Scotland or England. So get out. This is mine. So he pops up to England and says, hey, you're illegitimate, pal. Get out. Says, now at the time this is George II, okay? So that's interesting. And by the way, he's Protestant. He says, oh yeah? Why don't you go pray to your God, huh? Go on. Rub your crucifix thingy, okay? Okay? And Charlie leaves in a huff. Now they start making fun of him and calling him Bonnie Prince Charlie because the guy is kind of handsome. So he goes over to France, builds some kind of a mercenary army, and then pops up to Scotland where he still has holdings, okay? Right around Inverness, okay? And he nestles in, okay? So he invades with the French in 1744, but the French say, yeah, this is dumb, the weather sucks, we're going home drinking wine, bye, and they leave. So he goes up to Scottish Highlands, starts building his power base again, and the rebellion is in full swing by 1745. It started off really great. They had some good solid victories, and they sent King George's forces into retreat quite often. So they just started marching south, okay? And it didn't exactly go very well. They kind of hit a stopping point right before hitting London, and they said, look, we're probably not going to be able to take it. Maybe we can just break. But to do that, we're going to have to go back. Excuse me. And we're going to have to build our armies. Winter's coming. It's not going to be a pretty one. So he says, all right, let's go. So they head back up to Edinburgh, and they double the size of the army. Okay? So spring rolls in. George is ready for him, marches his forces north, and they start fighting again. So they very slowly whittle down Charlie's forces until they hit the very last battle. And that was April 16 of 1746, in a place called Culloden. Okay, and I'll get to why this is important in just a minute. So, loyal British forces versus rebellious pretender Scottish forces get into a fight. The Scottish lose. They lose bad. Those that aren't killed are sent into a full retreat. They disappear into the countryside, and George's like, yep, I won. So Charlie books it back to Rome. Well, first he goes to France, then he goes to Rome, and everybody's going like, come on, dude, you can do this. I'm like, no, screw it. I'm too old, it ain't gonna work, I'm out of money, we're done. So he dies in Rome, and his body is then repatriated, and he's buried. Anyway, the aftermath of Culloden is actually very interesting. So what happens is George decides he's going to stamp out all rebellion, okay, all possibility of rebellion. So he gets rid of the whole Scottish pride thing, okay? He outlaws Gaelic being spoken. He outlaws clan identity. He outlaws the tartan. He outlaws even playing the bagpipes, okay? You're not allowed to wear a kilt. You wear trousers like a normal Brit, okay? And they started making fun of people that wore that, basically calling them women and so forth. So slowly Scottish identity started to merge in with the English identity, and the full British identity was effectively born. Well, here's the thing. The guys that don't like George, they still don't like George. So George starts hunting them down within a few days after Culloden, actually. Captures a few via, his men. and executes them. Okay? Even executes their families. Well, instead of quelling the rebellion, it actually starts to stir it up, and there's a lot more stuff going on, and they realize, do we want to kill all of Scotland? Because that's what that's going to have to take. So he says, all right, tell you what, back off, okay? Instead, what he does is anybody who's a dissident, instead of executing them, shows up at the house, okay? This is his ministers and so forth, comes in and says, hey, listen, got a deal for you, okay? We understand you don't like the king. We get it, okay? You're Scottish, you're very proud, we get it, okay? You are breaking the law, though, and you are guilty of things like, sedition. So here's what we'll do, okay? We'll give you a choice. We've got some colonies over in North America, okay? They need people, okay? We'll ship you over there, okay? I can guarantee you'll have a job, okay? We'll give you some land, okay? Maybe you'll get lucky, find a nice girl, huh? Pop out some babies. What do you say, huh? You stay over there. We'll stay over here. Bygones be bygones. Deal? What happens if I don't take it? We'll kill you. Okay, when does the boat leave? It was kind of like that. Now, interestingly, most of these people were settled in Virginia and Massachusetts. There were a few put in the Carolinas, okay? Because, hurricanes happen. Kind of difficult to deal with. So, what they did was these people move in, okay? They're Scottish. They do not like the English crown, okay? So, they start making babies, okay? And they start becoming part of the community there, and they start spreading their dissentious opinions, okay, saying that, the king's greedy, he's scum, and so forth, and whatever he says, do the exact opposite, yada, yada, yada. Now, he's telling this to the kids, okay? So, in 1747, 1748, these are 5-10 years old, these kids, okay? Well, they grow up hearing this, from Grandpa John, Uncle Billy, and so forth. Okay, all of this stuff. So, what ends up happening, a few years later, there's a little bit of dissent in the colonies, which is right in time for a little war to happen. Okay? It starts off with Prussia deciding that it wants to invade Saxony. Well, they call their friends. Saxony says, hey, I'm being invaded, so he calls his friends in the Holy Roman Empire. Prussia says, nah, we're taking you out. Okay, you're going to be part of Prussia. And they call their friends. Well, some of these friends happen to be other countries as well. One of those being Great Britain, and the other one being France. France and Great Britain do not get along historically. The fact that they kind of sort of get along right now is weird. They still make fun of each other, but anyhow. So, it spills over into what you can argue to be a world war. It is dubbed the 7 Years' War. Okay? And because of the colonial situation in North America, you have French colonies bordering British colonies with Native American subjects in both and on the fringes. Okay? Now, the French were actually a lot nicer to the natives than the British were. The British still had a few allies here and there. So the colonies on both sides, French and British, get brought into the 7 Years' War. This is a sub-war called the French Indian War. And that started right around about 1756 in May. Okay? And finally concluded February 15th, 1763. Okay? Now, along with that, the British colonies in India start to kind of come under fire because they're pulling troops out. There's nobody there to maintain peace. The Indians do not like the British Guess why? And they start rioting, rebelling, and so forth. So the British have to send more troops out to India in order to safeguard the absolute gold mine that India is for, silks, tea, spices, etc. All the things that the rich people, love. Okay? So they secure that, and as a result, during the French Indian War, the colonists have to fight alongside British regulars. Now here in the States, we are taught that this was just a travesty. No. Calm yourself, okay? Most of the people at this time were actually very loyal British subjects. They were very, very cool with it. Okay, so yeah, this is my home. I'm going to protect it. I don't want to be a subject of France. I don't want some weird Indian beating me up. Come on, man. So the war ends. It's what is known as a white peace, at least as far as the British and the French are concerned. Basically, nothing happened. There was some money and alliance, yada yada yada. Big deal. No territory, as far as I know, changed hands. Okay, so. This was expensive. The 7 Years' War was actually one of the most expensive wars fought in the modern age in Europe. But it didn't happen recently. No. The modern age is an actual thing. It's what we refer to as the period after the Enlightenment. Okay? So, George, by the way, now is George III. Okay? So he institutes some taxes. Okay? One of those taxes is an income tax, and he levies it on the colonies. He basically says, look, you are part of the empire. You need to pay your fair share. Okay? I know it sucks, but we did pull you guys out of the fire. Now you have to play nice. Okay? Now, they levied this horrendous tax on them. Guess how much? 1 to 1.5%. I would lick somebody's boot right now for 1 to 1.5%. Okay? I would love to only be taxed at 15% right now. I'm taxed significantly higher. So I'll just leave that there. Now, interestingly, if you were a British citizen living on the island of Great Britain or on the island of or in Ireland for that matter, you paid 5 to 7% income tax. Yeah, the colonists were furious, by the way. They regarded this tax as completely ridiculous, and yet paid it anyway. So, 1764 to 1765, Parliament, in order to make up for, the lack of money coming in from the colonies, because, well, they really didn't have an easy way to track it. Okay, so there was a lot of under-table dealing done in the colonies because there was nobody to regulate it. So it was like significantly less than what it should be. So he says, listen, I got to pay back this debt. Okay, so he institutes a thing called the Stamp Act. Okay, what Stamp Act was any form of paper that was sold in the colonies, be it a contract, be it a newspaper, be it playing cards or anything else, had to have a little stamp put on it. Okay? And that stamp would be X amount of money. Okay? I don't know. It was a percentage or something. I have no idea. Okay? Not important right now. Well, the colonists thought this was a bunch of crap. And it kind of was. Okay? Because it escalated the costs of several things. Not just the paper, but the stuff the paper was connected to. Okay? So it actually kind of dropped the economy a little bit, and the colonists really didn't like that. Okay? So 1765, Parliament repeals it due to, protests. Okay? Along with that, in 1764, Parliament got word that the colonies were printing paper money because there wasn't enough gold or silver to go around for coinage. Okay. British pound I don't think was a thing that back then. I think it was the guinea, if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong. So what they did was they said, no, you're not allowed to make your own money. No. British money only. Stop it. Well, that of course slows down the economy, because where am I going to get precious metals to make coins? Okay, not only that, I have to wait for the coins to come in from Great Britain. I don't have that kind of freaking time. I have business to do, and I'm not going to do sale on credit, because I am not sure that Seamus over here is going to pay his debts. Okay? Well, here's what happened. The colonists rioted, and they boycotted British products. It's like, we'll make our own. Nuts to you. We got stuff. We'll just make our own. We'll build our own economy here. Well, of course, Parliament did not like that, and so they instituted an act in 1767 called the Townshends. Okay? Well, it's actually a series of acts. Basically says, no, you can't do that, no, you can't do that, no, you can't do that. I said, well, fine. We'll just be illegal. Bite me. Okay? So, in 1773, the East India Company was granted unrestricted trade for tea. Basically, they could set their own prices, whatever it was. Okay? So, by this time, tea is kind of a thing in the colonies, and East India Company is bringing it in. Well, Boston looks at the price of tea, it skyrockets, going like, we're done. So they toss the tea into the harbor as they were rioting. Okay? Here, we're told in school it was a protest. No, it's a riot. It's a destruction of property. It's a riot. Okay? Don't be gaslit. All right. So, 1774, the governor of the colonies, he apologizes to the crown, like, look, I'm trying, I'm doing everything that I can. Can you ease back a little bit on some of these acts, okay? Some of these laws, okay? So, along with this, in September of 1774, the colonies activate the First Continental Congress, okay? And they send over a list of grievances, okay, in October 20, basically telling King George, that would be George number 3, and Parliament, we've kind of had it, okay? You keep doing all this stuff to us. We have no place in Parliament, okay? We're treated like a stepchild, okay? We are loyal British citizens. Why don't you treat us like human beings, okay? Parliament comes back and says, I'm sorry, okay? You legally do not have a place in Parliament because you're a colony, okay? Do you want me to give India a place in Parliament? Because there's a lot more of them than there are of you. The House of Lords, House of Commons would just explode. Do you want India running the place, or do you want Great Britain running the place? Okay? Says, we don't care. Place in Parliament. We want a say. So, I can't do that. Okay? I understand. Okay? So, the governor then, the governor of the colonies, recommends suspending what had been deemed in the colonies the intolerable acts, things like the Townshends, all of this other stuff that was going on, and said, if we don't do this, they are going to revolt. Okay? You don't know what it's like. It is terrifying here. We need to stop. So Parliament sends over an order, kicks him out of office, and sends in peacekeeping troops, okay, in the hottest areas, that being Massachusetts, Virginia, Connecticut, etc. Okay. Well, 1775, first shots are fired, okay, and the colonies are declared in open revolt by the Crown in 1775. At this point, it's just 13 independent colonies that are kind of hanging out together. They're what is known as a coalition. Okay? The reason being is they have enough of an association together to kind of sort of work together-ish. Okay? See, there are certain levels. Okay? There's semi-common goals. You don't really have a word for it in English. Then you have an alliance. Now, alliance can really only be formed by two sovereign entities that have a common goal and a common enemy. Then afterwards, basically their association falls apart. Now, a coalition. A coalition is a little bit... Okay, yeah. Coalition is below an alliance. It's a bunch of guys, / countries that say, yes, we'll do this thing, and then when we're done, we'll go back to hating each other. An alliance is a lot more formal. It's like, yes, we like each other. We won't necessarily be hanging out after this, but we're not going to hate each other. Okay? Necessarily. Then you get a confederation. They're kinda a country. It's a lot more structured than an alliance, but by no means do they have to listen to each other or even necessarily cooperate. Next level up from that is a federation. Technically, everybody involved in that federation is independent, but they are so interdependent on each other that they can't break those bonds. So they still hang out. Okay? At this point, the British colonies, all 13 of them, are a confederation, and it was a mess. During 1775 into 1776, there would be a battle, and guys from, Pennsylvania were going to show up, and New York is there fighting. Pennsylvania didn't show. Where are they? Here they come. Problems. Okay? So, in 1776, July 4, the Declaration of Independence is brought in, and let me go ahead and bring that up. One quick second. Okay. Declaration of Independence text. Okay. Now, in Congress, July 4, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for the people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shewn that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid word. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with many firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states for that purpose, obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing to assent the laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount of payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and acknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretend legislation, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be carried for pretend offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule to these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coast, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled to the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy of the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens, taken captive on the seas, on the high seas, to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to befall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections among us. He has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor we have been wanting attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity. We have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They, too, have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must, therefore, acquiesce to the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right, without to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Then we have signatures, 3 from Georgia, 4 from Maryland, 3 from Delaware, 4 from Massachusetts, 3 from North Carolina. South Carolina sent 4 delegates. A 5th one from Massachusetts, that would be John Hancock, the biggie. Virginia sent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. New York sent 4. Rhode Island sent 2. New Jersey sent 5. Connecticut 4. New Hampshire 1. New Hampshire sent 3. Pennsylvania sent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 delegates. Now, this is on nationalarchives.gov, not .org, .gov. That is a website run by the United States federal government. So there. Okay? Now, a lot of people point to this as being the founding document of the United States. Highly arguable. Okay? So, let's move forward, shall we? So, the war ends in 1781 with the surrender at Yorktown. Okay? That's October 19, 1781, by the way. And then they just kind of floated politically. See, the states were not a federation at this point. They were still a confederation. Some of them didn't even like each other. I mean, New York and New Jersey, to this day, do not get along. There's other rivalries in there as well. There were issues with interstate commerce, with money. Each newly formed state was founding what had its own money, even. Okay? We actually have record of this. And there were even starting to be border skirmishes between the populace. Yeah, that's not good. So, the Congress convened again. Okay? Like, we need to hammer this out. Okay? They had no idea what they were doing, necessarily. They knew enough. Okay? They had things like the rights of man. They had Pike. They had another guy, I can't remember his name right now, of good things, okay? Political thought and so forth at that time was highly revolutionary, very experimental. We had no idea how this was going to work, okay? John Locke, that was his name. Anyway, so in 1787, Congress sits down and writes what we call the Constitution, okay? It went through a few drafts, okay? A lot of debate. There were fist fights even. Yeah, that was neat. And they finally sat down and ratified it in 1788. It was not openly adopted by the 13 states until 1789. Okay? Now the Constitution outlines how the government is run, what the states are. It is under this document that we federated. Okay? The original 13 went from a confederation to a full federation. Okay? See, there's a thing in there. It's called states' rights. Okay? I believe that is amendment number 10. Okay? See, the first bit of the Constitution outlines what the government is, who has what powers, what we call them, how we address them, and so forth, what they're able to do, what they're not able to do, who is able to get upset with the other one and for what reason, and so forth. Okay? So they ironed all that out, and they said, hang on. Okay, remember when we decided to fight that war a few years ago? Well, we need to look at this. Okay? So remember those kids that were, listening to Uncle Johnny from Scotland about how bad the crown was? Yet they're middle-aged now. Okay? These are old men. These are in their 40s. Okay? They rebelled. Some of them rebelled in their 20s. Yeah. Okay? So these guys, they sit down and they iron out the first 10 amendments. Okay? These are things that guarantee the things that they were not allowed to have under the crown, which is why today you see so many people here in the U.S. going, my First Amendment rights, my Second Amendment rights, my Fourth Amendment rights are being trampled on, okay? Because tyranny does that, okay? Now, I want to make one thing clear. I am not calling for any abolishment or rebellion whatsoever. No, guys, chill, relax. This is a history lesson, okay? What I am saying is the whole 1776 thing is not necessarily accurate because 1781 to 1789, that's kind of a big jump in time. A lot of people will even argue that the war didn't actually end until 1783, which, yeah, I'll give you. Okay, because there were still British troops for 2 years in North America doing raids and so forth, basically harassing people because reasons. They were finally pulled out in 1783. Okay? And things finally calmed down. Still, that is 6 years. Okay? Of what are we doing? Okay? Of rebuilding, of trying to get people to play nice with each other, of people who were loyal to the crown during the revolt picking up and getting out because their neighbors are threatening them. Okay? That's a lot of time. So I would argue, and I'm probably not alone in this, that the United States actually started in 1789 as we understand the United States to be. That is, with not only the Declaration of Independence, but the ratified Constitution as well, with its full implementation. Okay, guaranteeing the rights of citizenry, controlling the powers of government, and also deciding how the country is actually to be run under what framework. So, feel free to rip me apart in the comments about this. I would actually love to talk about it. This is one of the things. Please keep the swearing and the insults to a minimum. Thank you. Okay? All that being said, happy Independence Day. Happy Declaration from the United States to the British Crown all those years ago. And remember, guys, with freedom comes eternal vigilance. With freedom comes responsibility. That is extremely important information. Okay? So, you take care. Bye-bye.